Hello, and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri with Amy Cornell, and there's so much really cool stuff going on right now. First off, we want to thank the new reviews that we just got on iTunes. Yes, we check religiously all the time, so thank you so much for that. One reviewer, the title of the review is Obsessed, and I told Amy it's both a cool title for the review, and it's also it could be a name of a true crime podcast. So it serves both. It serves both purposes. We also have a really cool promo going on, and it is in the show notes. So if you put a little bit of code on your website with the podcast player, you will get some really cool swag and be entered to win an even bigger prize. And like I said, all the details of that are in the show notes. So this idea came out of my obsession with two things. My obsession with audiobooks, which I listen to when I hike. And audiobooks have been such amazing for me because I plowed through, I think, like 20 books last year, which is a record for me, even though I work in book publicity, right? I'm like the cobbler that goes home to kids with no shoes. And I'm also obsessed with Frida McFadden. If you've ever read how I forced the housemaid on to Amy. I'm like, you have to read this. You have to read this. And I told her, actually, I'm like, if you don't like the book, like I'll buy you 2 replacement books if you don't. I was so obsessed. I think she's just a fabulous, fabulous author. So anyway, I got another one of her books on audiobook, and the narrator was so bad, and we're going to let you listen to a snippet of it. And I'm actually going to write the author and just let her know. And I want to preface this by saying that the author did not pick this narrator. This is a deal that she had with her publishing company, and somebody, I was going to say a not nice word, but I'm not going to. Somebody at the publishing company, for whatever reason, that thought this narrator was perfect for this project, and really was, as you'll hear, it was just awful. It was so hard to get through. And it was a good story, as all of her stories are good. But the narrator was robotic and awful. And there is a lesson here. This isn't just a podcast about Penny venting about her audiobook woes, but a poor narrator can really ruin your brand. And if I wasn't already in love with this author, I would have stopped the book. I did rush through it. I will say that. Like, usually, like my audiobooks, like I save them for my hikes, and I'm like, that's like a thing. And now I was just like, I'm cleaning the house. I have to get through this audiobook. I cannot hike with this robot in my ear. I mean, it was just so bad.
Right? Because you wanted the story, but you didn't want to belabor listening to it.
I did so much eye rolling. So before we go on, let me pull this up on my phone. You have to hear this. I mean, it just was unbelievable. All right, so let me hit play. And we're just going to give you just a little snippet just so you can feel my pain right along with me. I also sent this to Amy last night, and she was like, oh my gosh, hold on. Wait a minute.
Chapter 42.
Ugh.
Exactly. When I drive over to Brady's apartment, all I know is I don't want to be alone right now. Not when whoever killed those girls is capable of getting into my house. Maybe Brady will let me spend the night with him. Then I'll get a hotel for the rest of the weekend. It's not just that I want company. I want his company.
Okay, there's so much wrong with this. The snippet actually goes 2 minutes. Listen, y'all, I will keep it. If you listen to this and you want to listen to the 2-minute snippet, I will send it to you. But here, I am so obsessed with how bad this is. In fact, I actually researched this narrator to see if, and she's gotten like awards and stuff. For whatever reason, she was told to narrate the book in this really robotic, like there was nothing nice about this protagonist, right? Like the story is that her father is a serial killer, and all of a sudden, like, dead bodies start showing up in her basement. She's like, I'm not a serial killer, but you don't believe her because she sounds like a psychopath.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair.
So part of the reason that we wanted to bring up this, that we wanted to turn this into a show, is because there are a lot of really easy choices out there, right? There are a lot of choices that are like Amazon's now doing AI. They're doing AI generated audiobooks. It's become easier and easier to jump into the audiobook market. This example that I just showed you is why you have to be really careful. And I'm not suggesting that because I think we previewed the AI audio on one of these podcasts when Amazon first launched it, and it's not bad. But is it really right for your book? And that's part of the reason why this example was so beautiful. So if this narrator had narrated a book about robots, I think it would have been a spot on perfect match because there's no emotion in you know what I mean? So the other reason that this was worth mentioning is because I think if you're considering jumping into the audiobook market, there has to be a narrator voice match to your genre, which is where the Amazon AI doesn't have really a competitive edge because the AI is pretty much always the same. And it doesn't necessarily sound robotic because I was surprised at how well the AI followed commas and natural pauses that were in the manuscript. But one of the things that Amy and I talk about, and then I'll stop talking and Amy, and I'll turn it over to you. But one of the things that Amy and I talk about a lot is that if you're a fan of your genre, you have to read obsessively in your genre. And I would say to you, if you are going to create an audiobook, do your due diligence, but become an obsessive fan of your genre in audiobooks. That will really show you, and look, I understand that good narrators are expensive. Good narrators can make or break not just your audiobook, but also your career, right? I mean, Amy, do you want to, now that I've done my rant and listened to my sample and offered more samples to listeners who want to hear it, give me your take on this.
I know that if anybody wants to listen to more, it reminds me of when somebody goes, "This milk bad, will you smell it?" It's like, absolutely not. If you have to ask, get rid of that shit. Like,
you want to taste the milk? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I do think this also, as you were talking about this, Penny, and explaining how critical this is, and not just for the production quality, but for the user experience and then just their long-term impression of your brand. It's really also kind of connected to when we talk about finding the right editor and finding an editor that makes you want to cry. And you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that, similar to the narration, it really can make or break the user experience with your book. And even simple mistakes, or to your example, the kind of robotic nature, even though you want to say like, no, but the story's still good, but the experience isn't good. And then at that point, why? So it can't just be something that you check off the list. And that also goes with staying competitive. We do a lot of these shows to help authors figure out how to stay competitive. What's working, what's not, what do readers want, what's changing with Amazon, like all the things. So it can get very overwhelming thinking you always have to be doing the next new thing or jumping on the latest social media platform. I mean, we all remember when TikTok first hit, right? And everybody was trying to be on TikTok. I feel like the fact that audiobooks are cheaper to produce right now, which in some ways is amazing. We even have clients that are stressing about the release of their audiobook. We've had a few emails just in the last week with clients saying, okay, and we haven't even started their marketing on their current editions, but they're like, okay, audiobook, what do I need to do? I feel like I'm behind the race. But to your point, it's not something to check off the list. It's something that you really want to put some serious time, energy. Do you have the money? Do you have the resources? Do you have the time to do the research and to do your due diligence? If you don't have the time to put into producing the very best experience for the reader, then it's better not to put anything out yet at all. Hold off until the right moment. It's kind of like rushing any elements of your book. As exciting as it is to get your book out there, you never want to rush something and then have it sacrifice the quality in any way.
Well, but it's also, I mean, it's also disrespectful to your reader, in my opinion, right?
Yes,
So,
we talked about that last night.
yes, it's very disrespectful to your reader. And I will tell you that she has, as we're recording this, she has another book, The Boyfriend, which just launched today, and I was going to pre-order it on Audible, and I thought, I'm going to listen. I'm going to, because you can not necessarily preview the narration of the book, but you can research the narrators to see what they sound like. And if I didn't like the narrators, I was absolutely not going to go down that rabbit hole again with her.
And
So,
think, Penny, like you said, you've purchased a number of her books. You are already like stamp of approval fan. In most cases, 99% of cases, nobody's going to put in that much effort to try to buy your book. You know what I mean? I think that's what authors need to keep in mind too. It's nice to think that people will try to like your book and click buy. And it comes up a lot when we talk about descriptions, book covers. There's so many things, author bios, where if you're at all at the point where like, well, if they just get to that point, or if they just overlook that, if you're telling yourself that at all, something's wrong and you need to fix it.
yeah. Yeah, that's and this is something that we've seen. I mean, I know we sort of landed on the audiobook stuff, but I have seen this in creating author videos. You know what I mean? I mean, like book videos. I have seen this with authors who jumped in, like you mentioned, the TikTok craze. I've seen authors do this jumping into their TikTok accounts that just, I understand that we really want to keep the train moving, but you really have to kind of pick your you have to do your due diligence, but you also have to kind of pick your battles, because every element of your book production, your launch, your audiobook production, etc., requires research, time, and due diligence. And like I said, I understand that narration is expensive. I mean, we've had authors that have paid upwards of $3,500 to $4,500 just to get an audiobook narrated.
Oof.
Yeah, it's not inexpensive to do. There are shortcuts, like you can go through if you have if there's a talent, not a talent track. Oh my gosh, what am I saying? If there is a drama track at your local college, or depending on the age of the characters in the book, maybe your local high school or something, and they can do a project like this, an extra credit. I've had authors do that, and it turns out beautifully. But first, you have to know what you want and what you don't want. And I think the other piece of it that comes into this is what I said, is you really have to be a rabid fan of your genre to kind of know which voices resonate with you and which don't. Now, some of these, depending on the caliber of the author, some of these narrators may be out of your reach price wise, but it's kind of like when we advise authors on book covers, right? So when I talk to authors about book covers, I say the first best thing you can do before you go to a book cover designer is know what you like and know what you don't like, and be ready with some examples of, I really resonate with this in my genre, I don't resonate with that, and then let them create something. So as you are thinking about creating your audiobook, you can collect, like, this is the talent that I really like. This is something I really want to stay away from. And find, there's a lot of talent, like whether you do it through ACX or however you decide to produce, you will find a talent match. But man, I cannot tell you how important it is. And like I said, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I have stopped audiobooks before for this very reason. The only reason I finished this was, again, just because of the story, which was kind of ruined because the gal just sounded psycho. But, but again, your brand, it's really just, it's hard to come back from that. It's hard to win people back from that. There's a trend to get into like dual narration, where it sounds, and Audible's doing a lot of that with their own kind of production stuff, where they have like multiple actors, and all of that is good. But figure out what actually really works for you. If you need a narrator who can do good male voice, like a female narrator who can do good male voices, then that's something that you want to look for. Listen to some of the books that they've done, get a real sense, but man, you really never want to settle with any aspect, which I know, again, a lot of our podcasts sound like a lot of work. And this is, I'm sorry to say, this is really no different.
Yeah.
So I hope, Amy, did we cover pretty much everything? Do we have anything else to add other than just reminding
No.
people that if you want to listen to the entire excerpt, if you want to smell the bad milk, email Penny and she'll send you a sample of the.
But no, I think we covered everything, and I'm glad we did this. And I love when we're able to do timely shows. And that's what I love about the podcast, is that we're able to say, like, you know what, this is a problem. Let's get it out there. Make sure authors are aware, give them something else to consider. Again, we just want all y'all to be putting out the best product possible.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard to do. There's so many things that you need to keep track of, things to consider. So hopefully, you know, our podcast continues to be a resource for checking things off your list.
Well, and it's not just, you know, the AI. I mean, Amazon obviously jumped in early in the AI audiobook narration, but, you know, there are a lot of places where like authors are creating we talked about this. We did a book cover show, I think a couple of shows ago. We talked about this in the book cover show, and we talked about how AI generated book covers are fine, but AI is not a perfect source, because like we have an author right now who's working with the designer and the cover looks fine, but the hands always look weird. Like, I don't know why artificial intelligence just really hates hands. I don't understand that. But I know that there are a lot of AI programs right now that will narrate your book for you. Man, you got to be careful with that. You really got to be careful with that. Make sure that it is what you want, that it's going to, you know, something that your audience is going to really resonate with, because you could spend a lot of time and a lot of effort and end up getting a lot of bad. Because, you know, if you look at the reviews for this particular book on Audible, they're terrible. I mean, they're really terrible. And as an author of her caliber, who basically doesn't sleep and pumps out all these books at this lightning speed, nobody likes negative reviews, but the amount of negative reviews on this book just for the narration would just kill anybody's mojo, I think, personally. So,
oh, absolutely.
So we want to thank you so much for listening. Remind you to check the show notes. We have a cool little promo going on. And thank you again to those of you who are leaving reviews on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you are challenged because the Apple system, the podcast system in general, doesn't make it easy to leave reviews, send the review to us. We have a brand new podcast page on our website. We will add them. We will cite you, all the good things. And again, we love listener ideas wherever. So if you come up with something, feel free to email us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.